See, you're on.
Bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum dum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum ba ba-da-da-da-da. Hello, mighties. Hello, Facebook people. Wonderful to see everyone. Tampa, Florida, and Fort Wayne, Indiana, Woodstock, Illinois. Wonderful. From Marin, that must be Marin County. Yes, I am here. Can you see me? I assume that you can see me. Hi, Marla. Happy Thanksgiving, fellow Americans. Happy Thanksgiving. One of the best holidays of the year, the one where we just cook and just eat and spend time with family and friends. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm looking to see if I've got my Facebook friends here. Hi from Maryland, and hi, Wanda in Ontario, Spokane. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to see everyone. I love doing this with all of you folks. And if you can tell, I'm in a different setting. I'm no longer in Florida. I've gone north to spend time with my family, and I'll be here for quite a while. I love being here. It's very exciting to me. I love Florida, but I don't want to say anything. There's no place like home. And Western New York is my home. So it really feels good to be here today. All righty. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Wonderful. So tonight, we're going to talk about a vascular remedy, about nosebleeds, vascular conditions. You need to know this medicine. It's not a protocol. It's not part of a protocol. And you know that I mostly teach protocols, but I also want you to know materia medica because you may not have a protocol for a specific condition, right? That's the way it works. So, in case you don't know me, my name is Joette Calabrese, and I'm here every Monday night, Eastern Standard Time at 8 p.m. And I teach homeopathy. I've been doing it for close to 34 years. And I've taught nurses and parents, and I've actually taught in convents and in schools and online, of course. I've taught in India. I've taught mothers in India. I've taught healthcare practitioners. And I've taught homeopathy longer than I have actually been in practice. But I've been in practice a long time too. So, and mostly what I love to do, as much as I love meeting with my clients because I get to be with them on a very intimate level, but I also love to teach. I like to turn people on to this. This is important stuff, folks. This could change the world. In fact, it has a few times changed the world. And if you're just now learning about homeopathy, just coming to this, the reason it's taken you so long to get here is because this is the most suppressed medicine on earth. There is a reason why the competition does not like homeopathy, and it's because it's efficacious. There's a reason why the competition does not like homeopathy, is because it's inexpensive. There's a reason why the competition doesn't like homeopathy, is because it is whole and real and true. It is the lofty medicine. It doesn't come with patents in synthetics. It's the real thing. And so sometimes when an industry that is really in all one with government finds that they're up against something that's noteworthy, that is true and real, it fights very hard and puts a lot of money behind it. And so that is why homeopathy, that used to be one of the most important medicines on this earth, we had 100 homeopathic hospitals in the US. Yes, indeed. My hometown of Buffalo, New York had 3. And one of the most important ones was in the main area of the most beautiful part of the city with a fountain in front of it and had lots of traffic all around it. I was actually born in that hospital, but it was after. It was no longer called Buffalo Homeopathy Hospital. But we had more hospitals, homeopaths did, and homeopaths were the medical doctors who were trained in homeopathy and the medical nurses that were trained in homeopathy. We had more hospitals than did the conventional medical doctors. And so there was a big hullabaloo about that. And the industry behind the American Medical Association, we all know which industry that is, don't we? Because that industry is now showing its true colors more than ever. People are finally learning about this industry and catching on. The jig is up. The jig is up. Something's awry. Something is wrong. And I think more and more people are catching on to this. And as they catch on and you turn more people on to the problems that we're seeing in an industry that has gone wild, in taking over humanity and taking away our freedoms, up comes this homeopathy once again. It's not the only one. We also see botanicals making a resurgence and acupuncture. People are looking for alternatives. But what's so lovely about this particular medicine is that you needn't go to someone to treat yourself or your family. You become the homeopath. You do not need to go to someone as you would for acupuncture treatment. Great stuff, I might add. You don't need to go to a chiropractor to get this work. Great stuff, I might add. But with homeopathy, you can be the one who treats your family and yourself. And that is what I try to do is I try to get the most complex. It's a very complex medicine and distill it and distill it and distill it down so that it's very usable and practical for you and your family. And I want you to teach your children and your grandchildren, and I want it to go horizontally, and I want it to go vertically, and I want it to go up and down, which means that your friends, your neighbors, your church mates, your homeschool friends, your relatives, teach them here and there. Don't be bothersome to them, but do teach them how comfortable it is to be in a world where you don't depend on synthetic drugs that too much money is behind. And listen, I'm not against people making money, but there does come a time and place for everything, doesn't there? And there is a point. So, all right, let's talk about this medicine tonight for nosebleeds, and it is it's a medicine called Vipera or Vipera, Vipera. Yes, my friends, we are in the V's in the Materia Medica, and I've got my Materia Medica right here. This is what we're using tonight. Should you be interested, you might want to get a hold of my Materia Medica. And if you find that it's not of your liking, no problem. There are Materia Medicas different from mine. They're all different because they're different authors, but they are all have all value as well. Tonight, I'm also going to be reading a little bit from the William Boricke Materia Medica. I like this. I like this particular one. It's leather and it's got a little tab to a place mark. And I'm going to be reading a little bit more because in my Materia Medica, I just barely touched on this medicine. And I wanted to flesh it out a little bit further so that it fills in all of the, it's kind of warm in here. I guess maybe I shouldn't have worn this warm poncho. And I want to touch a little bit more on how this medicine is used. Normally, I like to use remedies in a 30 or 200 unless you're using it daily. And even daily, we can do that, but I also like it in a 6. So, Vipera in a 6, 30, or a 200 are very good potencies. So, these are this is a medicine that can be very, very useful for for cardiac conditions because and especially cardiac edema. Now, sometimes we find that their cardiac edema can arise from a problem that's a chronic heart problem, and there is a swelling around the heart, and the edema, which is of course fluid, collects and collects and then can cause breathlessness and coughing. So this is a great medicine that can be used for cardiac edema and cardiac other conditions around cardiological problems. So it's also indicated in inflammation of the veins. So it's cardiovascular. It's so and when I wrote it up in my tease to get you to come here tonight to learn, I talked about nosebleeds, and it's particularly valuable in nosebleeds, especially while a mother is nursing. But don't let that hold you up. Don't believe for 1 second that you must have nosebleeds or that nosebleeds must be accompanied by nursing or in a nursing mother, because it can be much more sweeping a remedy than that. All righty. So, indicated inflammation of the veins with great swelling. So, it's cardiovascular with swelling. Could be swelling with edema, could be simply swelling. There's an enlargement of the liver, also can be ailments of menopause. Now, why menopause? But isn't it interesting that women, when going through menopause, find that that's when they have palpitations, they have sensations around the heart. It's a very vascular time, and it's also a cardiological time. So it's not the first medicine I think of for menopause, but if there are nosebleeds, or if there are vascular issues, or if there's cardiological issues, Vipera would likely be one of the medicines I would consider. Now, we also have polio. It's been used in poliomyelitis. Isn't that interesting? Is that not fascinating? Now, we don't see that disease very often, but if we did, we would know this is not the only medicine that could be used for it, but it is certainly one of the more important ones. There is the person can have pain that's even violent, especially in the abdomen, again with an enlarged liver. Now, sometimes we don't know if the liver is enlarged. It's only a matter of sensation, where you can feel there's something going on in that area, in the region of the liver, but it does not mean that just because you don't know for sure if it's the liver, then that we wouldn't consider it. It certainly is, but to be considered. But it's also, whenever we have liver conditions, we also have to consider jaundice. So jaundice is often accompanies this condition, especially if there's any liver issues. And you may not know that it's the liver, but you might find that the sclera of the eyes are yellow, or that the gums have turned slightly or greatly yellow. Okay, and so this is one of the medicines that we would consider for this. Prostration and fainting and faltering pulse. This is all under the circulatory system, and a congested feeling or collapsed feeling, collapsing. Remember, this is when there's something going on with cardiovascular. It would not be unusual for there to be these kinds of sensations if it got severe enough, with skin that yellows. So more often than not, we think of jaundice, a high bilirubin level, for example, and presenting and then showing on a without a test. We see a lot of yellow sclera. The gums are yellow, but even the skin can be yellow, and those are all indications that something is going on with the liver. All righty. So we also have varicose veins. It's, as I said, vascular. Varicose veins and acute phlebitis. So do remember this for vascular. If we open up with the information that I gave you to encourage you to come tonight, and I talked about nosebleeds. Now, anytime we see something like that, don't think of nosebleeds necessarily as related to sinuses, although it can. But more often than not, especially if a nosebleed is quite sobering, then we're going to be thinking about a vascular remedy. And so when we see vascular remedies that are really where the nosebleed is flowing and the person ends up in the emergency room where they pack the nose to stop to put pressure to the area, then this is one of the medicines we think about. Now, others think of phosphorus for bleeding, and that is definitely one that we want to consider, isn't it? Lachesis, also a medicine that we think of for bleeding, but especially nosebleeds and vascular issues. But I want you to know about Vipera because it is one of those medicines that is super important to have in your hip pocket. And as I always say, own it. Own these medicines because we don't know what will come of this, what shall we say, liaison between big industry and big government. So I urge you to own. Now, some say the best potency for this remedy is in a 12C. And that is certainly interesting because that's what William Boricke says in his Materia Medica. But I would more likely use it perhaps a little bit higher in a 30C, especially if we're going to be using it for short term. Now, if we're going to be using it, it's just for a nosebleed for a short period of time. But if we're going to use it consistently day after day after day, then I must admit, I do like that 12C potency because in that case, we would probably be using it twice daily. All righty, let's see if I missed anything here. The skin is livid, like liver, yellow, and it's better from elevating parts. So if there's phlebitis, it's better to have the legs lifted because that's where it can help with the cardiological aspects of this medicine as well. All righty. Would arnica and high potency help to stop the bleeding? Arnica is a great remedy for bleeding as well. And you might always want to start with a medicine that you have. Obviously, you use what you've got until you can get what you need. And yes, arnica could certainly be of value, particularly if we think if there's an injury to the vascular system. But even if there isn't, arnica is a great medicine even for non-injurious parts of the body. All right. And 12 potency and ongoing heart issues. Yes, I would say that. As long as it's ongoing heart issues that fit what I've described, because there are other medicines that could be much more valuable for heart conditions other than Vipera. You do want to see the congestion or some bleeding or something to that effect. All right. Let me just carry through here. Yes, love that this question came up. Someone is talking about how a child or a daughter, I don't know if she's a child, is gets nosebleeds, and after being exposed to others who have had, and so I do believe that this is a good choice because it's not the only one. And in that situation, because you don't know for sure, there's so many uncertainties about what all of this means that I would stay in a low potency for that. Yes. And now what about injury or nosebleeds from allergies? Now, unless the bleeding was quite extreme, I don't know that I would go that route. And so what I mean by that is a nosebleed that's within the range of acceptable, meaning that it can be handled at home and it's really not that severe, then and it has to do with the sinuses and allergies, this might not be my first choice. I would think more in terms of sanguinaria. But if it's bleeding that is profuse and difficult to abort, then by all means, I would consider it. Internal bleeding. Well, it depends on what we mean by internal. If we're talking about vascular, yes. I mean, certainly bleeding does mean there's something vascular associated with a condition, but I don't know exactly what that would mean. All right. Let's get back to my mighties for a while. And should one own all potencies? Of this medicine, I would start with with the 12C as the lowest, and then I would think of the 30. I don't know if you need to own the 200, but I mean, if you're trying to stay a little bit frugal, this one you maybe could avoid the 200. But I would have used it. I would use this in a 200 from time to time. Left leg swelling with heart palpitations, a little bit too vague. Leg swelling makes me think of, possible vascular, but it would have to be, you'd want to know whether or not that truly is vascular. Would it work for nosebleeds where some blood also goes down the throat? Well, nosebleeds that go down the throat, the blood goes down the throat, only means that that's how far back it is in the sinus cavity. So I don't think that would be necessarily the reason to use it. Okay. Someone's talking about the issue of pressing the lip, to keep the nosebleeds from carrying on, and it is a very good positional suggestion. Would this help with the extreme pain of a blood clot in the calf? I think it could. I think it could. Yes. It's not the only one, but I will say that a blood clot in the calf, I would think more in terms of arnica. And why is that? Somebody's going to ask me why, and I'm not so sure. Well, I always think of blood clots as hemamelis 200 with arnica 3. Okay, so hemamelis with arnica 3. All right. For varicose vein in the calf that suddenly swells and hurts, yes, I would use it. Would I use the 200C? Yeah, in that case, maybe I would. If it's an immediate switch, it's like a switch was flipped. Yes, a switch was flipped. Would it work for nosebleeds caused by eating too much garlic? If the nosebleed was extreme enough, then I would say yes. That's a reaction, obviously, a food intolerance reaction. Good for free bleeders. Yes, it could be. Yes, I do believe that would be a good choice to use it for. Would it work for nosebleeds cause? Okay, got that. The garlic. Seasonally with allergies, I think I answered that one. All righty. What about using it for lymphedema? It's not my first choice. I'm not saying we would never do that, but it's not my first choice. It could be. There are other remedies that are probably better chosen for lymphedema, at least to start. Sanguinary, I would use for variety, garden variety would be a 200C. Deep vein thrombosis, yes. And OHM only has 6C of the 30C of Vipera. Okay. Lovely remedy. Skin under eyes turn yellow as an indicator, along with others. Yes. Thank you very much, Lisa. You're absolutely right. So it's not just the sclera of the eyes, the white of the eyes. It can be under the eyes, can be the gums, can be the palms of the hands. You see a yellow tinge. Vasovagal, yes, that certainly is. Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Carla, for writing out hemamelis 200 with arnica 3. What aspects of menopause? Well, with menopause, when there is a cardiological condition, palpitations, edema around the heart, those kinds of things around that time of a life in a woman, I definitely would consider it. Viper is very closely related to lachesis, and lachesis is a great remedy for women, especially going through menopause. All right. I see folks chatting amongst themselves, which I love to see. Good for all this myocarditis going around. I think it could be. Yes, I do. I think it could be. The carditis, the microvascular issues. And what about edema under the eyes? No, that's not the one I think of with edema under the eyes. Menopause, what potency? If it's something that needs to be used twice daily because it's rather intense at the moment, I think I would go with a twice daily in a 6. Excuse me, in a 12. And TIAs and stroke, no, it's not the first one I think of. It is certainly considered. But um, menopause, if it's more of a milder version, then I might consider a 30 every few days. All right, what potency for DVT? I'm same thing. I would stay low and go to maybe to a 30. Would it work for heavy flow and cramping? This is not my first choice for that. I don't think that would be. I'm not saying wouldn't act, but it's not my first choice. Chronic that leads to congestion around heart. Yes, that is where I would go with this. Okay, where is OHM? OHM is in Texas, but you have to be either a student or a client of mine in order to purchase from them. So if you don't have access to them for that reason, then by all means check out Helios in England. And let me think if there's some others. Washington Homeopathics and Hahnemann Pharmacy. All right. Let's see what else we've got here. Would it help in a brain aneurysm? That's not what I would consider. No, it's not where I would go with this. Yes. Transient ischemic attack. Yes, I think that I would say that's very possible. And hematomas. Hi, Harry. It's not my first one. Hematoma, I almost always think of arnica first. Thompson's in Toronto. Yes, Thompson's in Toronto. That's another good one. Okay. What else do we have here? That was my mighties. We've got already answered that one. Nosebleeds with clots. I've used belladonna, says someone. And thanks to the information, not even homeopath can avoid disease. So I do not question this. Thank you very much for saying that. I know that people are very concerned because of the loss of Robin Murphy. And I don't have the particulars on it. It's a very sad state of affairs, no doubt about it, because he was brilliant. He was brilliant and he was a stalwart in the homeopathic community. He and I were becoming friends. He and his wife invited my husband and me to come and stay with him in January. And we never made it. I met him on Zoom and I interviewed him for my academy. I'm so delighted that I actually got that in. But I've never met him personally. Feel as though I know him because I followed him for so long, listened to his tapes many years ago back in the 80s. He was a stalwart in the homeopathic community. All right. Yes, thank you for teaching, Vipera. It isn't listed in all of our Materia Medicas. No, it isn't. It isn't. And so that's why I gave it such a small segment in my Materia Medica, but I wanted to flesh it out a little bit further for everyone. Yes, Robin Murphy passed away 3 days ago. Yes, may he rest in peace. He's one of those people I believe probably is resting in peace. There are certain people who you can feel, that they have an understanding of the true meaning of life. And they gave their all to humanity. Where can we read about meds for aneurysm and homeopathy? The way I would suggest that you do that, now I'm going to be teaching that in my academy, but if obviously you're not in the academy, so I would suggest that you get a hold of a repertory. In fact, why not get a hold of Robin Murphy's repertory. You look it up there, and you'll find it won't tell you. You're not going to be reading up, so to speak. Repertory is a very interesting book. It's a compendium of all of our remedies and how they're used in particular. Not how they're used. They're a compendium of the information that we as homeopaths have accumulated over the past 200 plus years. Very interesting book, very in-depth book. You can get this on, I'm sure you can get it on Amazon. But I also urge folks to get their homeopathy books from a place called, they've changed the name a couple of times, but the last I looked, it was called Minimum Price Homeopathy Books. All righty. I think we can call it a night. I think we've got some good information out there. And we're going to be talking next week. And I wish those of you who are Americans have a great Thanksgiving. And for those of you who are not, I wish you all the best in the next week. And I will see you next Monday, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. See you then. Bye now.